Good afternoon, Jets Nation. Welcome to the Jets Show. It's week 3. This week's opponent is the Cincinnati Bengals, who were in the Super Bowl last season, but have also lost their first 2 games to start off the year. While, of course, we saw the New York Jets break our September losing curse in last week's game, beating the Cleveland Browns 31-30. So in this video, we're going to be talking about what to expect from the offense and defense, and whether or not we're going to extend our winning streak against the Cincinnati Bengals. So without any hesitation, let's get it started. So last week, we saw the New York Jets offense play good football. Joe Flacco threw for 307 yards and 4 touchdowns, 2 of them going to Garrett Wilson, who in his second ever NFL game caught 8 passes for 102 yards, and of course those 2 touchdowns. We saw Corey Davis had that 66-yard touchdown catch, and the rest of the Jets receiving core, Elijah Moore, Tyler Conklin, Braxton Berrios, had around 100 yards combined. So the New York Jets receivers and the offense just overall played good in last week's game. The offensive line had a huge step-up performance. We did terrible against the Ravens, but managed to keep Joe Flacco in a pretty clean pocket against Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. And this week, Flacco will be playing in a pretty clean pocket. The Cincinnati Bengals have had 2 sacks so far this season, which is ranking really low so far in the NFL. And I mean, the New York Jets should do a good job protecting Joe Flacco. I mean, if we could stop the Cleveland Browns pass rush, we should be able to stop the Cincinnati Bengals. And I feel like Joe Flacco has another good performance. I mean, Cooper Rush was able to throw for 235 yards and a touchdown last week. And we all know what Mike White did against the Bengals last season. So if they can have success against the Bengals, why can't Joe Flacco? And what about running the football? The Cincinnati Bengals have done an alright job stopping the run so far this year, but we also really haven't seen the New York Jets run it a whole lot. But when we have, we've done a pretty good job. We've just been playing catch up in both of our 2 games, and you really don't want to run the ball when you're playing catch up. So if we can see the New York Jets maintain a lead, I do feel like we will see Breece Hall and Michael Carter have pretty good games. Or at least definitely one of them. Now, what about the defense? Of course, last year, the Cincinnati Bengals offense was one of the best units in the NFL. Joe Burrow had over 4,500 passing yards. Joe Mixon had over 1,000 rushing yards, and the Bengals had 2 1,000-yard receivers. Their offense was insane last year. But it has been off to a really rough start this year. Joe Burrow hasn't really looked too hot, and the Bengals wide receivers aren't as dominant as they were last season. Now, of course, last week, Jacoby Brissett was able to throw for 229 yards, and we had a really rough time stopping Amari Cooper. Part of that was because the safety room has been giving us no help at all this season. I don't think that changes. And another part was because Sauce Gardner was getting kind of messed around with a really veteran good wide receiver in his second ever NFL game. Of course, Amari Cooper was going to do some magic, make some magic against an NFL rookie in his second ever NFL game. Now, the Bengals have, a veteran receiver in Tyler Boyd. He's in the slot. Chances of Sauce Gardner covering him really aren't going to be that high. They have 2 really younger receivers in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Maybe they can work some magic on Sauce Gardner. Could be possible, but DJ Reed's going to be locked down once again this week. But because of the safeties, I do have a feeling at least one Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver is able to have a pretty good game. But I don't really feel like they're able to have a whole lot of success passing the ball just because of their offensive line. So far this year, they've been absolutely terrible when it comes to blocking the pass. They've allowed like 10+ sacks. Heading into week 3, that's never a good thing. And while the New York Jets have had 3 sacks so far this season, which really isn't that good, you also got to look at it from how we were, kind of playing in our defensive scheme. The New York Jets were playing run conservative throughout the first 2 games because we were going up against the Browns, who have Nick Chubb, and the Ravens, who, just love to run the football. But now this week, our plan should just be blitz, blitz, blitz. Send the house on Joe Burrow as much as we can to, of course, sack him and help the Bengals not play good football. What about stopping the run? The Bengals, of course, have Joe Mixon, who had over 1,000 yards rushing last year. And the Browns had 184 total rushing yards last week. Most of that came in the 4th quarter. We did a pretty solid job stopping the run until then. It's just the defense was super gassed whenever we were just running it down, or whenever they were running it down our throats late in the game. But Joe Mixon, he's a good running back, but so far this season, he hasn't been off to a hot start. He has the most carries in the NFL, but is 11th in rushing yards, has 0 touchdowns, and is also averaging 3 yards a carry. He really hasn't been off to a good start this year. Part of that is because the Browns' offensive line also hasn't really been that good. So I do feel like the New York Jets are able to stop Cincinnati Bengals running game. So everything I'm saying in this video makes it seem like we're going to win. And honestly, I am feeling a New York Jets win in this game. Now, I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals could randomly get out of their Super Bowl hangover. They might look like the team they were last year. But based off of everything we've seen from the Bengals in their first 2 games and what we've seen from the Jets in their first 2 games, the New York Jets look like they're the better team than the Cincinnati Bengals right now. I don't think that Super Bowl hangover, especially based off of what we've seen from them in their past 2 games, gets off of them, and I feel like they have it once again this week, and I do feel like the New York Jets are able to get a record above 500 in the month of September for the first time in forever. I feel like we get the win 24-17. What are you guys' thoughts on the video? How do you think we're going to do in this game? Make sure to comment it down below. Always love to hear what you guys have to say. We'll have a video coming out if any Jets news happens. And of course, after the game, praying for a win. You should be too. I'm your host, Jude, signing off for now. See you guys later. Peace.